With us now, NBC News White House correspondent Aaron Gilchrist, Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent, former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro, and Lance Trover, Republican strategist and former spokesperson for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. So, Aaron, what can we expect in President Trump's first cabinet meeting?
Well, Jose, that meeting expected to get underway at any moment now, and I think it would be fair to expect that Elon Musk and the work that his Doge team have been doing will be at the top of the agenda there. We saw President Trump himself tweet a little while ago post on his social media platform a little while ago that all cabinet members are extremely happy with Elon. We got indications from the press secretary yesterday that Elon Musk would be in the room during this cabinet meeting and that the cabinet secretaries would be tasked in this meeting with walking through how their agencies are working to do what the president has set out to do at the beginning of this administration, to weed out, as he calls it, waste, fraud, and abuse. You can expect to hear President Trump obviously do most of the talking as he runs this meeting. And then if past his prologue, we know that it's likely he'll go around the table and you'll hear from cabinet secretaries probably praising him as a leader and talking a little bit about the work that their individual agencies have been doing. We know that 18 of President Trump's cabinet-level nominees have been confirmed and are now in position. At least two secretaries, I believe, have not yet been confirmed at this point, and so they will be gathered around the table with him. We don't, Jose, at this point know how long this meeting might go or whether we'll hear any new announcements. We know that, as I said, Elon Musk will be in the room. We would be interested to see if the president turns to him, if he speaks about the work that he's been doing, despite the controversy that has surrounded it, in terms of some of the back and forth that we've seen in terms of the work that he's been doing versus the direction that some federal workers have been getting from cabinet secretaries and their individual supervisors in some cases of different offices. And so that's all going to be something that we are looking out for in this meeting, Jose, to see exactly what level of detail we get about what's been happening in the federal agencies.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, what do you think the significance is of Musk being at that cabinet meeting?
Well, look, he's driving the train right now on a lot of the things going on across lots of different agencies. So, it makes sense from the Trump point of view that he's there to coordinate with the cabinet agencies, given the disconnect over this "what have you done for us lately" email that he sent out that a variety of directors and cabinet secretaries told their people to ignore. It would behoove them, obviously, to kind of get on the same page. Now, it's not unusual for people other than statutory cabinet members to be at a cabinet meeting. Presidents are allowed to bring anybody they want, obviously, and they usually bring top staffers, senior advisors. Clearly, Elon Musk is a senior advisor, but he's not a member of the cabinet. As a special government employee, he has a different status. He's not on staff per se. He's not full-time in the sense of a government employee, because he's also still running his businesses. And it gives him a unique position that we haven't seen, I think, in any previous White House. And I think that there'll be a lot of attention paid today on how he interacts with the cabinet secretaries. Is he deferential or is he issuing instructions?
Yeah, and I mean, the fact, I'm just thinking in the last administration, the president had cabinet meetings towards the end of his administration with the first lady speaking and with his son there.
Yeah, exactly. It's up to the president. The president can do whatever he wants, or eventually she wants in terms of a cabinet. It is interesting that Trump did not try to give Elon Musk cabinet status. That's something within the purview of a president. But again, because he's a special government employee, it would be very, very unusual, if not unprecedented, to do that.
And Julian, I mean, I know you've been to so many cabinet meetings as your role as secretary. Just this is such an unconventional presidency, an unconventional president. But what are cabinet meetings like in your experience, and how much actual work comes out of these meetings?
Oh, I mean, the plain answer to that, Jose, is not much. I mean, they're two parts, basically. First few minutes that are for the cameras, where the president will say a few words, and then generally the cameras go away, and there's the meeting that actually happens. But even in that meeting, generally that part of it, the business part of it, if you will, is still very scripted, fairly produced. Everybody has the agenda. Everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to say. I think that's even more true in these Trump cabinet meetings that sound like dear leader meetings, where everybody's just so intensely praising him. I do think, though, that if there is value here, it is getting a sense of since this is one of the few times when they're all together, what does Trump say about Elon Musk? How does he treat him in that setting? Does he give him deference? Does he signal to his cabinet members that they should give Elon Musk and his dictates deference as they go and try and do all of their slashing and burning of government agencies, especially because in the last 48 hours, we saw some of these folks push back against a mandate that Elon Musk had sent back. That's what I'm going to be looking for.
And Julian, just again, back to your experience on this, when does the actual contribution of a secretary with the president, when does that contribution actually occur? I'm just thinking, there were cabinet members that were, meeting with President Obama throughout, the two terms. When did you see your contribution being most effective when you met with the president?
That usually happens in one-on-one meetings with the president or staff meetings with the president to give him updates. It rarely happens, I think, in these cabinet meetings. These are generally short meetings. They are, as I said, fairly scripted. There may be some exchange of ideas, but mostly this is for the president to articulate his agenda, put on the table his priorities to the cabinet, and for them to get a sense of what's really important for him. So, there's some of these cabinet members that are going to interact with him all the time. If you're the Secretary of Defense, obviously Marco Rubio and the Secretary of State. There are others that are going to interact with him probably a lot less. Department of Transportation or EPA, certainly these agencies that he has no regard for. And for them, really, it's the once every 6 months or so where they may get to meet with him one-on-one or to brief him on something. But these cabinet meetings themselves, really, I found them to be perfunctory.
Almost made for TV meetings, and so that is where you see how the production outlines are carried out in front of the cameras. And Lance, NBC's Jonathan Allen reports on the Department of Government Efficiency that, quote, critics say Musk's chainsaw approach to slashing government programs, contracts, and workers is having the opposite effect, sowing such confusion that it is hamstrung the bureaucracy's ability to serve the public and even carry out key parts of Trump's own agenda. That's what critics are saying. That hasn't mitigated any of DOJ's activities, though.
Of course not. I mean, they have to move fast. They're moving fast. They have to move fast, because if they didn't move fast, this same bureaucracy would do what they're already trying to do, which is slow the ship down. I mean, they just don't have a choice but to move fast. And I would point to the Harvard poll that came out in the last 48 hours that says 72% of this country likes the idea of DOJ. They like the idea that people are going in and cutting things. And so if they sat around and wait for the Democrats and the bureaucracy to keep their team up effort going, nothing would ever get done. So they have to continue at this pace moving forward. And as Elon said a couple of weeks ago, yeah, look, they're going to break things. Things will get broken when you move at this pace. But when you recognize that certain things didn't need to be broken or should be fixed, then they're going to fix that. We've already seen that happen in a couple of instances. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, and I think it's great that he's going to be in this cabinet meeting. I think it's also telling that the president has him in this meeting, because it speaks to how seriously he is taking this effort to get this bureaucracy under control. And I think it's a good opportunity for them and the cabinet to meet and talk and understand and get aligned on the president's priorities in terms of DOJ moving forward.
And so as DOJ moves forward, Lance, when you say that it's going to be inevitable that things are broken along this process, the reality is that some of those things, many of those things that are broken, are human beings, people that have been going to work at the federal government, people who have lives and homes and children in school. In other words, where do you think, Lance, or is there a point in which the things that are broken become people that are affected?
Yeah, no one likes to see anybody lose a job, certainly. I mean, that's obvious. But I think the public has been very clear about this for many years on end, that they feel that this government itself has grown so large and so uncontrollable that it's not even answerable to the President of the United States. And I don't think there's certainly no question in my mind about that. And so the size of it needs to get scaled down. Does that mean there are going to be job losses? Yes, unfortunately. But there are also private sector jobs out there to which people are qualified for or can go to. And by the way, people in the private sector deal with these types of downsizes all the time. And so, yeah, while we don't like to see anyone lose a job or a family affected, I think when we think about the taxpayers' dollars and how it's being spent here in Washington, that's something that has to be taken into account as well.
Absolutely. And Peter, NBC's Garrett Haake also asked the president if Elon Musk speaks for him. Here's how he responded.
Is he speaking for you when he says you'll be terminated?
Yeah, everybody speaks for me. I'm the one. I'll take responsibility. You know the old statement, the buck stops here, right? Famous statement. Well, I can say the same thing. The buck stops here.
What should we take away from those comments?
Well, look, he's backing up Elon Musk, and I think that he knows that there is in Washington a kind of a parlor game wondering when they may actually split up, right? That whether these two giant figures eventually fall out, because a lot of people in Trump's orbit do ultimately fall out with him. And he's trying to say, no, that's not happening. No space here between us for the moment. But when he says, yeah, he speaks for me, everyone speaks for me. The problem is everyone is saying different things. And I think that's sort of a moment of confusion at the point. If the cabinet agency is saying, don't answer Elon Musk's email, Elon Musk is saying, well, if you don't answer a second time, you might lose your job. And the president says it's somewhat voluntary, but then you might lose your job. You know, a lot of people are sort of at wit's end. But for the president, I think it's actually an issue that they don't mind having out there. It's an easy to digest issue for the public. People say, yeah, I don't understand what the problem is with having an email in which you have to list 5 things you did last week. That seems perfectly logical. It may not be a very serious way of figuring out who is valuable and who's not, but you know, a lot of Americans aren't going to find that all that offensive. And I think that the White House doesn't mind that that's the storyline right now.